it was just getting to the point where it's like, geez, like, am I ever gonna at least give this a shot?
This is for the artists, makers, dreamers, philosophers, and ponderers. This is the Philosopher Art podcast. Okay, so welcome to the podcast. It's been a long while because we've had the summer. A lot of the visual artists are in the markets and the festivals, so I guess I've been a bit on the down low at the moment. So I'm getting into the swing of it, but me and Andrew have talked on many occasions around spirituality and creativity and the balance between those two things, and also trying to make a living as well. So welcome to the podcast. Thanks for
Thanks.
you do this.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, it's good to talk about all this stuff, and I think thinking through talking is a cool way to do it, because we always seem to bounce cool ideas off each other, and I feel like I always learn something that way. So it's cool. Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to bring some people along to sort of be flies on the wall once this goes out. So we were talking before. I don't know if you want to do like a little bit of intro about who you are, and then maybe talk about how the writing came about and how you just changed your whole location and your whole lifestyle, with that being very much, I guess, on the digital nomad kind of landscape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I'm Andrew. I'm from the New York area originally. I was born in Boston, but I grew up there. And so my whole life is obviously a very long story, but I'll try to give you the interesting bits. I went to college at a writing school, but I studied chemistry. And then I went to engineering school where I also did chemistry. But all of those things actually made me a really good writer, in addition to like thinking through scientific concepts and these sorts of things, which turned out to be kind of a unique skill set, which I'm now applying as a copywriter. So I write sort of like marketing stuff. That's what a copywriter does. So I write websites, emails, blogs, these sorts of things. And so my niche is kind of the sciences. So I have a few clients in like biotech and nuclear energy and other stuff like skincare. And there's a big scientific component to that, actually, because a lot of skincare products need to be like scientifically validated. So that's kind of the career side, but my passion has also always been music. I've played guitar for 20 years now. I've put out 2 albums, 1 EP, got a new single coming out in about 2 months, and lots of other stuff. I just love playing guitar as much as possible, and performing as well. I've been in many bands over the years. And yeah, and then the other thing I do, there's 2 more, is mindfulness meditation, which I've also done for many years, about 6 years now. And I still meditate every day for at least an hour. And then the last thing is I love to travel. So I've lived abroad for the past 2 years, mostly in Thailand, but in a couple other places throughout Southeast Asia as well. So this is a brief intro. If you want to hear more about any of those things, I'm happy to elaborate.
Well, the floor is yours. We've got sort of at least an hour, if not more. So yeah, just feel free. Just rambles and tangents are welcome, because that's what I do. Often go in place. Yeah. You did a 10-day silent retreat was that in Thailand recently? So how was that different to your? I think you've done maybe 2 or 3 others. Maybe that was more the America area.
Yeah. So I've done a total of 5 10-day courses as a student, as a meditator. This is 10-day Vipassana meditation in the tradition of Sayagi Ubakin, as taught by S.N. Goenka. It's a pretty particular type of meditation, but they host these 10-day silent retreats where you meditate like all day, every day, get up at 4:30, you meditate like 12 hours practically, and then you go to bed, and there's breaks and stuff too. So I've done 5 of those as a meditator. I've done an additional 9-day course, which kind of is geared towards people who have been doing it for a while. So the 9-day course actually dives into more theoretical aspects of the meditation and like different aspects of mindfulness. And then I've served on 2 more. So all those courses are run by kind of like volunteers, not run by, they're served by volunteers who like make the food, do cleaning stuff. And so I've served 2 courses. And so, so I just recently in March, I sat a 10-day course in Thailand. Actually, it was the second time I sat in Thailand. And how it was different from back home, to be honest, it's almost the same. They use the same recordings all around the world. It's all the same teacher. They try to be really consistent about that. And since it's a silent retreat, like I don't talk to the other people there anyway. So like that doesn't really change. And yeah, the center itself is a little different. It was in some mountains in northern Thailand instead of some mountains in Idaho or a little like hilly region in Massachusetts, but they're all quite similar in that sense.
And do you find going back into the real world takes a little bit of time, and does that relate to your creative practice? Does it feed into the music? Because I know the visuals certainly do in terms of having the road and the journey that you often put in your YouTube videos, but I was just wondering in terms of lyrics and the way you create music, if that feeds into it, or if there's a different spirituality maybe. But
yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of coming back into the world, there's definitely an adjustment kind of period, and it's closely intertwined, I think, with kind of my philosophy on creativity, which is namely that I do it best when I'm alone, which I hate to tell people that, but in my experience, it's been true. And Vipassana has been a really interesting way to explore that, because being alone there for 10 days, like no phone, no email, no nothing, like you are out of contact with the world, not talking to a soul, you know? And on those 10-day courses, I've made a huge amount of progress in my spiritual life. And so when I was trying to do more with my music, I tried to kind of apply the same idea and do like a music retreat, really beginning during the pandemic, like lockdown, like right when the pandemic started. I was on a ski trip when the pandemic started. And so then like one day I was skiing, the next day every mountain on the continent was closed. And I was like, well, that's a bummer. So I got a plane home and I was stuck at home for a couple months, but I was like, yeah, I'll use this time how I can. I was waiting for a job to start like a couple months later. So I had like a couple months free to do kind of whatever I wanted. And so I just wrote music all day, every day. And it was awesome. You know, it was amazing, because before that point, I had never really tried to get really serious about the craft and songwriting. I didn't consider myself like a songwriter. If someone told me to write a song, I'd be like, oh shit, like I don't know how to do that. And so I just learned it by doing it. Every day I wrote a new song. The first day it was garbage. The second day was like still bad, but a little bit better. But by like the third day, my ideas were starting to kind of form more coherently. And when you put yourself in a fully kind of immersive environment like that, where you're working on something all day, every day, you'd be amazed how quickly you can do that, actually. Like within just a few days, the ideas started getting really good. And, over the course of 2 months or so, I wrote probably like 50 songs. Most of those not most of them, but the songs on my first album were pretty much all written during that period. It was such a huge accomplishment for me, because I never knew I could do that. And similarly with the meditation retreats, it's like the hardest thing I've ever done. And especially the first one, I didn't know that I could do it. I didn't know if I could make it 10 days or like have a breakdown or something. Like the second day, the guy sitting next to me left. Like people do leave.
Okay.
And
Maybe because
yeah,
you've inspired me to try, but I'm thinking I might be that second or third day person.
it's hard. Yeah, I mean it's hard because you're really facing the things that you've been running. Well, I should use the first person. I on retreats and stuff, I face the things that I'm always running away from, and that's at first a terrifying prospect, but it's like exposure therapy. You get better at it. But I just want to speak to the second part of your question about like lyrics and ideas and stuff too. Um, they make it in sometimes in more subtle ways, but there is one song I have called Mnemosyne, which is the name of the mother of the muses. Um,
I love that.
and it also, you know that? Yeah, yeah,
No, I don't know that, but I very much connect to having a muse and being the channel, and a lot of what Big Magic talks about, which we'll get onto later. But yeah,
totally.
but that's a brilliant name for a song. And is that the Thai language, or is that?
That I believe is from Greek, and so the translation of Mnemosyne, which is the I guess woman, her name or goddess, the person's name, it translates to memory too. And so for me, there's this big connection between creativity and like remembering who I really am, like the like essence of what it means to be me, you know. And I think that's why I need to be alone to really create because in normal life I get kind of pulled in so many different directions and it can be it can be hard to remember like what is me, you know, what do I really care about, what do I experience, what do I love.
Yeah.
And so that song actually the first couple lyrics are taken directly from my meditation teacher, which is may wisdom arise, and then I take it a bunch of other ways, but those are the words that stand out to me most about a Vipassana course when the teacher is giving the instructions on how to do Vipassana meditation. The thing he finishes with is may wisdom arise, which to me has just always been so beautiful because it's like such a challenging thing, but the purpose and the intention is so pure. You know, it's take all this pain and use it, you know, use it to create wisdom. Uh, so,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
brilliant. So you say about being alone while creating, and I think I always battle with is social media and how often when I'm making YouTube videos, the only way I know how to make YouTube videos is the process. But then I'm wanting to bring back the sacredness of creating alone again. So how do I do that and show stuff? So yeah, the question really is with social media, how do you bring that alone time in and is there ways that you share on social media that feels more I guess healthy or more supportive towards the creative craft and process?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I think social media, that's a hard, it's a hard question. I don't
It
really,
takes a while to get through all
I'm
this
not,
because the modern age is all on all our minds.
yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, for me, to be honest, I'm really bad at social media, which could be why I haven't, you know, grown as much as maybe I would have liked.
It might just mean that you're not so obsessed or connected to it and you actually have a healthier relationship with it than what we do, because I feel like I leave it alone and I just feel it nagging in my head going, you should probably post something. It's been a week, you know.
Yeah, but I don't think so. I think I'm as as obsessed and unhealthy. I just don't use it for my craft. You know, I'm still on Instagram all you know all the time and stuff. And but I think over the many years that I've made music, it's been a humbling experience of learning what other people do and don't care about. And with social media, like my first album, I was so stoked about it. I was like, this is gonna you sell millions of copies. Everyone's gonna listen to it. And of course, nobody did. But I think part of that is because I didn't market it very well. But another part of me thinks like I could have done better. I don't know. I always try to keep the focus on the crafts. It's hard though, man. Like in today's world to be an artist and to have an audience at anything, not just art, like you do need to be at least somewhat active on different social platforms. And to do that is a completely different skill set for the most part than painting or making music or, whatever it is. And so I think it's a huge challenge. It's one that I'm certainly still working through. I'm no expert, but it's something I'm kind of working on. I just want to get the social media game like good enough that, people are clicking my stuff, people are at least checking out my music. And then my music hopefully is the thing that they stay for.
I guess what I'm trying to get is I've got people like clicking on liking a few things, but I may get 40 likes. I've got quite a few following and things, like nearly 1,500 on Instagram. But what I really want to change is more like the chatter and have more comments between each other and have more of a community building and my followers getting to know each other. That isn't happening as much as I would like. And a few months can go by and I go, oh, I got a comment. Great. Lovely. I want to get more, want to get more engagement in terms of have people talk about it in the comments. That's what I want to, because it feels more like less dead space then when you're putting it out and things. So
totally. Can I ask you, do you have any ideas on like how to do that? Because I feel like you would know better than me. I don't know very much about this.
Well, Instagram's the only one I really know about because YouTube, I don't really know about. I've done quite well with the podcast, but my art channel has been 3 years and we're just hitting 356 and then we might lose a few people. And it's just teetering on that. It's been teetering on that for quite a while, for the last 6 months or so. So YouTube I can't really help with, but Instagram, those who are listening and yourself, I would just go to other people that you actually generally like, who are either in your field or you just think they're cool people, like their stuff, comment on their thing, get it to be social, and that'll then ping them a notification that you've done that. And then hopefully some of them will check out your stuff. And usually, I mean, I say every day, but I would say don't stress yourself out. Do it every 2 to 3 days and just like and comment on 25 people. You can follow a few people, and then they say they post every day, once a day while doing that when building up. But I think once or twice a week on Instagram is plenty enough to, unless you feel comfortable doing more. And it could just be like a cool photo you've taken with some writing underneath. It doesn't have to be necessarily your music necessarily or your artwork. I keep remembering it doesn't have to be the finished article. I can just take a picture of myself or some interesting landscape I'm out in and say, I'm doing some sketching out in the landscape. It's not ready to show yet, but thought I'd take a photo of my inspiration or whatever.
Totally. So I do have a little bit of experience with this, if I'm being honest. So a while back I got like a music marketing course because I do see the need for marketing and stuff. I mean, I work in marketing. My job is in marketing, and so I want to apply some of the same principles. And so this course was all about what you're talking about, which is being on Instagram, posting regularly, and not just posting, but also like using hashtags, commenting on other people's stuff. And there's kind of like a pulling them in through that, like you leave a thoughtful comment on a stranger's thing that you just found through like a hashtag, which is maybe a shared interest. They see your name. Maybe they click on your name. They see that you're about the same stuff as them. Maybe they follow you. Maybe they engage a bit. And so I did that for a little while. And for me, I didn't enjoy it. Like writing 100 comments a day or whatever. It was just like, it was tiring. And for me, not to speak for anyone else, but for me, it felt like I was being ingenuine because I was just commenting to comment. I wasn't commenting to actually talk with others.
And with trying to be genuine, I'd be searching for ones I actually really connected to, and then 20 minutes would go by and I'm thinking, I can't. Not that there isn't anyone out there, but just thinking I want it to be genuine and people that I actually get excited about, and trying to find like some common ground, that we can help each other with.
Absolutely.
The creative process. But that takes even longer. You don't want to just be. Right. Well, I mean, occasionally I've messaged people, I like their dog, but I don't want to, try to get.
Absolutely. Yeah. My idea on this now, I mean, the same idea, I think, like the core of the idea, regardless of Instagram or whatever platform, is you need ways for other people who you've never, seen or met or whatever. You need ways to connect with those people. And then you also need ways to like retain them and get them interested and get them engaged. And so I think this can be done on pretty much any platform. It just works in different ways. So recently, since I don't really like Instagram very much, I've been doing more on YouTube. It's the same idea, like you have a thumbnail and it gives you impressions, which is putting it out into the world, and maybe they click on it if it interests them, maybe they don't, but at least like it's automatically out in the world and people can interact with it. And then if they do click on it, then they find there's more, this guy's got a channel. Oh, he's got more music and more podcasts, and, and so that's kind of what I'm trying to build now. On Instagram, I just didn't enjoy it. It's a lot easier to release like one video a week than it is to write 100 comments a day. It's just.
Yeah, I suppose on the flip side to that, I don't tend to go into the reels or anything. I just take a picture of my artwork, put it on there, write about what it was about, and then that's that. I've stopped really going fully into Instagram in terms of like you say, the 100 comments and all that sort of.
Right.
Because if it felt like in genuine, I'm just trying to build the numbers, but I'm not actually really getting like the people, my group together. I'm not really getting those who are excited about my work. Yeah. Just another number on the clicker, really. So I want to go back a little bit with like what made you decide with the writing, because you had like a crossroads where it could either be engineering, which also wouldn't necessarily feed your music, I guess, but would be a steady job, or you can go after the writing, which may not be a steady job either because of having to find the work. So do you remember what that decision was like? Because I think we spoke just as actually made it, I think, whenever that was.
Yeah, it was over a period. The first thing I think that I need that I guess I come back to is I've wanted to be a musician my entire life, and that's still the case, and so this was always nagging me while I was studying chemistry in undergrad and when I was in grad school for engineering. And so I enjoyed those things. So I had always wanted to do that. And I enjoyed engineering and I enjoyed nuclear energy and chemistry and these sorts of things, but not the same way that I enjoyed music. And it was just getting to the point where it's like, geez, like, am I ever going to at least give this a shot? It wasn't even about succeeding. It was just like, geez, can you just like take a couple months and just give it a shot, see what happens? And so eventually I was like, contemplating engineering is generally a very stable kind of career. I could have pretty easily gotten a job and stayed in it for a long time and like made good money and like, but it's also like the comfort paradox of like, if you're really comfortable, you'll be less inclined to change, especially at, 24, 25, I was like, I'm still, I'm not going to want to do this in 10 years or 20 years or 30. I mean, I could, don't get me wrong, but like seeing as I'm 25, like I might as well just, what the heck, I'll go for it. So after I graduated from grad school, I got kind of a short-term job as an engineer sort of thing. That's very vague, I know. What I did was like a summer policy internship. So I was doing a research project at a policy think tank, nonprofit sort of thing, specifically about energy. This place is really, they do a lot of energy research and like, how do we solve the climate crisis and all sorts of stuff like that. And it was cool because the other thing I had always felt, not to go all over the place, but the other thing I had always felt is in the sciences, I never really liked being in the lab all the time. I felt like the technology for something like nuclear energy is actually really fantastic already. It's just really, there's so many public misperceptions about it and like miscommunications and like misunderstanding of different risks and benefits. And so to me, it was always a communication issue why the world isn't using more nuclear. And so this energy policy fellowship thing was kind of a way to get into that which is not just focus on the science of nuclear energy, but focus on like the messaging around it to kind of, make it seem more appealing. Because the technology really speaks for itself if you understand it. But just most people don't, though. Yeah, so that was kind of the start. And then that was just like a summer internship program sort of thing. So it like had a fixed end date, like end of summer. I could have probably got a job at that company. They were, hiring people from they hire people from that program a lot, I think. But the same idea though was just like, no, but I still want to do music. I still want to at least give that a try. And so I used the money that I had saved up from that while living at my parents' place because it was still the pandemic. So, living cost was low without rent. And so I saved up some money and I used that to like make the leap, so to speak. So I moved out and I was going to focus on music for like all the time. I pretty quickly realized like even with a couple months, I probably wouldn't eventually, well, maybe I would have, but I didn't think I would be able to make like a sustainable income through my music at that point. And so I figured writing would be a good alternative. And I had worked with a coach in the past who had at one point been a freelance copywriter. And he had really good things to say about it. And I thought about it and I was like, that seems like a really good job. It's really flexible. So my goal with copywriting was really to get a flexible job that would pay the bills, but still have like pretty flexible hours so that I could focus on my crafts and, not work like 40 hours a week, or more. So it kind of presented an avenue to that. I knew that I was a really good writer because I had done so much writing over the years. I went to a writing college and like, I had the skill. And so I knew it was just a matter of time before I could get paid pretty well for it. So I kind of jumped in at the ground level, started building a portfolio, like doing just really not fun projects, but just to like get the work experience. I think December 2020, I wrote something like 50,000 words, which was a lot at the time. Just writing like these random articles for Google, like which is healthier, Chinese food or pizza, or like what is, the best age to learn a foreign language and stuff. Because businesses pay money for people to write these articles and they help them on Google and stuff. They don't pay a lot of money. I was making maybe like $10 for an article. But, writing 50,000 words, though, was a really good learning experience. And soon enough, that made me more confident in my writing, gave me more stuff to kind of stand on in my portfolio. And soon enough, I found some better clients that paid significantly more and just continued. The more work I would do, the more I would move up and get paid and stuff. I think freelancing is good for that because you're not sitting around waiting for a promotion. You can like increase your rates pretty quickly. So that I benefited from that as well.
I guess the higher paid jobs will take more research, I guess, and be more on. Are they all on the scientific kind of side, or are there other ones that are in other avenues, but they all take a bit more research, I guess, to get them more so than the pizza versus Chinese food, maybe?
Not really, actually. Like the random articles for Google, I would usually spend a chunk of time researching because they're usually like some sort of question I'm supposed to answer. And so usually the question is something I've never really thought about, like whether pizza is healthier than Chinese food. And so, it maybe doesn't take a lot of research to answer that question, but other stuff like how to do digital signage and stuff. And I'm like, what the heck is digital signage? You could spend a day just Googling stuff to try to wrap your head around this thing. And then, there is a pretty decent amount of research that goes into those. And of course, now it's just, type it into ChatGPT and you're good.
Ask what your thought on that was, but yeah, carry on. We'll go on to that in a minute.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so that's kind of what I started. But again, it's really the writing that was the skill that I was building and practicing and stuff. And so when I did start getting better, jobs and stuff, some of them drew on past experiences. Some of them were just things I was interested in. So the first 3 decent clients I had, or more serious clients I had, where I wasn't just, writing words for the abyss of Google. I was writing for a chemistry course that helps students learn for like the AP chemistry test. So this is like a high school national chemistry exam. And so this course helps teach the students. And so the owner and the founder of the website, she didn't have a chemistry background. And so she just really valued my expertise. Like, hey, can you double check this thing? Hey, can you do this and that? And so that was really cool. It was fun to draw on that skill a bit and help people learn chemistry, which is something I enjoyed that. I still enjoy that. Even if it's not like my biggest passion in life, I still enjoy it. And then the other two that I did, one of them was just a copy editing. So this was just applying my skills as a writer to take someone else's writing and make it better. They were just valuing my expertise as like, how would you phrase this sentence differently? And like, they would just hand me a thing and be like, make it better. And I'd be like, I got you. And then the last one was actually music related. To back up just a step, I found all of these jobs through Upwork, which is like a freelancing platform. Yeah, I would say it's great for getting started. And I still have a presence on there, but I don't usually work through there much anymore. Through Upwork, though, like people are looking for jobs and people post jobs. All of these are just things that I saw and I applied to. And I was like, I think this could be interesting. And so I'll put in an application. One of them was music copywriting sort of thing. It was this online record store, and they needed someone to write like artist biographies. So I was writing biographies about Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, all these different bands, plenty of bands I had never really heard of or never really took the time to listen to, like Billie Eilish. And so to write about them, of course, I needed to listen to the music. And so this was a really cool job because it introduced me to so many new artists. And particularly the guy who ran the site was a huge Pearl Jam fan. And I had never really listened to Pearl Jam much until I started like writing about them. And I was just blown away. Like they instantly became one of my favorite bands. And I just went down the rabbit hole. I listened to so much grunge. It's like one of my favorite genres now that I had never even really known before then. So it was cool to kind of have the job. All of these jobs, like it wasn't just kind of for money. I mean, like I would get paid for them and that sort of thing, but they benefited me in other ways too. They enriched my life through stuff like that. Just random discoveries and things learned along the way.
How ChatGPT has changed the landscape and whether you think it's changing professional writers with their jobs, but also if it's actually helping like dyslexic writers like myself who can have like a virtual learning assistant, but also trying to make sure that it doesn't change their words completely to the point where the AI is writing it. So it's a really tricky sort of balance. So I'd love to get your thoughts on ChatGPT and how that's feeding into your landscape with being a copywriter, and whether if any that are secretly using it, or I don't know, and those who are openly using it, and it's fine.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So the articles I was telling you about before, like writing articles for Google and stuff, I feel like those you could just type it in ChatGPT and like no one even needs to touch it. Like you could just post that on a website or whatever. But for me, and for work that isn't as like mindless as that, ChatGPT is usually kind of the start, and it's kind of like my thinking buddy.
You use it to sort of have the sort of first draft kind of tidied up, I guess, and then you can just go to town.
Yeah, and for me it really speeds up research. So for example, I mentioned one of my clients is in skincare, and they'll want to write a blog article about vitamin A in skincare. And I know from talking to them and working with them for a while, some of the things that vitamin A does, but not everything. And so it's really helpful for me to go to ChatGPT and just say, hey, what are all the things vitamin A does in skincare? And just get a much more complete list in like 2 seconds instead of just focusing on like the 2 or 3 things that maybe I knew. So it's really good for that. That research side. I find what it writes, I can't usually use. Like sometimes I'll write an article on vitamin A and skincare, and I'll read through it and I'm like, no, like it's just the stuff it spits out like is usually a bit on the casual side. There are usually a lot of sentences that don't actually say anything. Like this result is great. It's like just delete, and I mean, it means well, and a lot of people include that sort of thing. But I think really good writing is cut down to like as short as possible while still maintaining like the
Yeah,
value
yeah.
in it.
I think it's a bare minimum of what keeps the value there. Um,
Yeah,
have you tried writing like a very sloppy first draft where it's all there, then feed it to ChatGPT? Because for my blog writing, because I just didn't have the headspace, I spend an hour or two writing it and then say improve this, and it'll change all the grammar. Sometimes I just say just change the grammar because I don't want it changing my words too much. But it's
right.
actually quite good. It keeps it as my boring sort of pacing, but puts all the punctuation in the right place, and then I can edit it some more. So it's pretty good. But
Yeah,
in the back of my head, I am worried that I may be, having 20% of it written by the AI too much. But
yeah, yeah. I agree. I think like it definitely helps. It's definitely nice to have something that can just give me 1,000 words if I ask it for 1,000 words, and maybe I'll use a couple sentences from it. Maybe I'll use a paragraph or two. But I still haven't found I could just, say, okay, this is good. Let's turn it in. Usually there's a pretty significant amount of editing that I do afterwards.
yeah,
So, yeah.
I guess for some of my stuff, it has been I can use it straight up, but it seems to have the same style and same chirpy nature. Where for some of my stuff, I was like, that's really not going to work. It just you're being
Yeah,
too
right.
overly positive. Going, "Yeah, this is amazing, absolutely, and this is a masterpiece." And going, no, I want to talk about the gritty side of the fact that you've got to push through those bad artworks to get to well,
Yeah.
bad artworks, what we class as bad, to get through to the good stuff. And sometimes it's this
Yeah.
positive that everything I do is going to be a masterpiece, and that's not the case.
Totally. It really depends what you're writing about too. Because it's kind of a casual tone, which I can't really use for my work generally, because most of my clients are like, you know, obsessed with brands and that sort of thing. But in terms of like if I have like a personal website and I wanted to just tell a story or talk about something, I think the more casual tone would work a little better. Still probably need to edit a bit, but
Yeah,
not as much.
it does seem to have its own style, even though it's an AI. It doesn't seem to. I think in the future we'll get it to learn our style and have it all the. I mean, it's scary that it'd probably be able to go through all our past writing that we've ever done in the world and be able to
Yeah.
sound like us. But so just we will move on from AI in a minute. But do you think it's going to change in terms of the landscape in terms of um those working in writing there? Do you think it's because I guess everyone's worried about their jobs, but I feel like you're still going to need that human input. I don't think it's ever going to fully take that away because there's stuff we can't explain in terms of spirituality and consciousness and all that sort of stuff that feeds into our writing, our artwork, our music, and maybe it will. But I personally don't think we're anywhere near having to worry about that just yet with the AI being able to mimic it.
Yeah, agreed. Maybe someday. I mean, the future, it's really hard to imagine like 500 years from now what AI will become, or a million other things. But I think within our lifetimes, that's probably not something I'm concerned about. But I do think it will increasingly be a helpful tool. Like you'll still need a human, but it'll help the human more and more. Like if I didn't use AI, my job would take a lot longer, actually, especially like the research I was mentioning before. And because of that, like I like it actually, and it actually gives me an advantage, I think. So I'm actually, I don't feel threatened by it because of that, because I know how to use it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's a collaboration rather than having it replaced because I mean I only discovered it about 3 weeks ago because I found out that my brother and my dad were using it. I thought, okay, let's have a go because I've been very skeptical of the whole using AI thing, thinking it can't be that great.
yeah,
And I was like, oh,
me
okay,
too.
it's speeding things up. It's
Yeah,
allowed me to do. It's allowed me to create things that I wouldn't have had the energy for before. So the fact that it's allowing me to put stuff out into the world that wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for having a little bit of a help, then
yeah,
yeah, I think it's a good thing because I'd rather have my blog posts exist with a bit of AI attached to it than to painstakingly try and write it and only have I don't know, 2 articles out a year. So
Right.
yeah, so
Totally.
I think for
Yeah.
that it's good, just not. I don't think we should rely on it though. I think it's good to
Yeah.
use it for that first draft, use it as a collaboration, and then put more of the human input back into it, I think.
Totally. Yeah. And just one thing to add, for me, I don't just use it for work. Like I find it helpful to get a second opinion on random questions I have, thoughts I have,
Yep.
like it maybe sounds silly, but like, if I'm one day I was sitting in a cafe and like there was like a bag on this table, and so I moved the bag because the person wasn't there, and so I was like, like what is objectively correct in that situation? Like, should I have left it? Should I have tried to find the person? And so I was like, ChatGPT, like, what would you do if you if you were in a cafe and there was some bag? And of course, it's like, well, I don't have a body, but it's usually very diplomatic,
Hmm.
maybe sometimes too diplomatic, but it'll say like, circumstances are always different, but if you feel such and such, like maybe the person wasn't there, maybe they weren't coming back, it's totally cool that you turned it in and you were like, I think someone lost this, which is what happened. So
Yeah, I feel like it kind of leans on what you did was the right thing. Yeah, so very diplomatic, as you say. And I think I even asked it, like, are you just saying what I want to hear? And it's like, I'm just an AI bot. I don't have any opinion.
yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah, because otherwise I would think about it all day and like spin my gears, and like what I really needed to hear was like, it's not a big deal. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but like it's not a big deal. It's like, oh yeah, I can chill.
yeah. So we've both read the book Big Magic, and that talks about how we shouldn't put pressure on our artwork to be the main source of income, and to allow our inner muse to, I guess, relax and to have that kind of freedom. I don't know if you want to touch on that in your own kind of, well, how you found the book, but also whether that feeds into anything you're doing with your own creative practice now.
Yeah. So Liz Gilbert is the author. One of my all-time favorite TED Talks. Have you seen her TED Talks? She has a few.
I, I've not seen her TED Talks, but I've seen a lot of her interviews. So,
Okay, those are great too.
go check out the TED Talks.
Yeah, so she has this TED Talk. I think it's the older one out of however many she did, where she's talking about like the origins of creativity and like what it means to be an artist, and kind of different classical definitions. Like the ancient Romans would say that someone had a genius living in like the walls of their studio, but not that they were a genius, but that there was some impersonal power feeding their art. And the ancient Greeks had a similar idea with the daemon. And so, she's just a really fascinating person to listen to and talk about creativity, because she presented in such a way that you don't need to be an egomaniac about it. Like you can just be a normal human being who enjoys painting or making music or whatever it is. And like that's the joy in artwork, at least for me. It doesn't really matter to me what results I do or don't get from the art. To use someone else's word, to use Owen Cook's words, art is just something you do for its own sake. And there's so few things that I do for their own sake, especially the older I get, which is a little alarming, but that's part of the joy of it. And so I think that's kind of Liz Gilbert's main idea in Big Magic, is like focus on like the magic in this process. Don't let these kind of humanly, worldly things get in the way. She also says you should be with your craft like it's a love affair, looking for any little moment to sneak away to the stairwell and like make out or whatever. And it's like that, where it's like we have our normal lives and our worldly lives, and we got to make money, we got to work jobs and stuff. But those don't need to be the same as our artistic lives. To just go into like this mysterious creative process where you don't know what's going to happen is exciting and fun, and like the enjoyment of it comes from not knowing what's going to happen. I think. So,
Yeah, I find my
yeah.
best work happens when I can be in the moment and I'm just building upon. I mean, I'm getting quite familiar with faces and figures, but it often just builds from the eye or the face, whatever, just builds. And I don't know if it's going to be a good artwork necessarily, because the way I work is I don't plan out every little composition necessarily. I tend to just
Yeah.
build upon and add stuff to it, and it sort of fans out. That's the way I like to work anyway. I prefer doing that than to plan the whole scene, because actually I find when I do, it loses the energy. And I've actually got one waiting that is fully sketched that I'm been putting off for ages
Yeah.
because of that reason. So yeah, I think it's exciting when you don't know necessarily if it's going to work or not. And when it is working, I feel like you're on a tightrope thinking I might fall off any second. I don't know if it's going to, I could do one last brushstroke, or I guess with songwriting and go, this melody's working, but I don't quite know how to end it. If I try this, and then you try something else and you feed it in there and go, yeah, it's not quite working now. And then, yeah, I guess it's
Yeah.
building upon the last thing you just did.
Can I ask you to define working?
Well, it's one of those things where you just have a feeling. You just look at it and go,
Mm.
that gives me joy and that feels good. Or I say a lot of the time it feels like me, which is difficult to explain, but there's times where artwork just doesn't feel like my work. And I think art shouldn't be work, even though there is the artwork or the I don't know if there's an equivalent in music, but some of the
Mhm.
words we use just make it sound as if it should be work. And
Mhm.
whereas the artist way, Julia Cameron, I think, yeah, Cameron, she says serious art comes from serious play, and I think
Yeah.
that's a nice play on words, and brilliant way of
Yeah.
phrasing it, I think.
Yeah. I think everyone's process is really gonna be unique and different. But I relate to what you're saying though. It's like the flow state, you know? Like when I was writing music every day during the pandemic, there were days where it was like everything I was doing was just like garbage. But there were a few days, where it's like I couldn't possibly play wrong note. Even if I tried to, I couldn't play wrong note because you're just so in tune with what's going on. And so it's this beautiful mixing of what's inside becoming what's outside,
Hmm.
which I think art is just like the ultimate expression of. Yeah, and that's what it's all about, because why can't we just do that all the time?
Yes.
I think we need to break down our own barriers to it. I think so much of it is also practice. And like for me, it was gaining the technical skill to just be able to communicate like that in the first place and be able to play what I hear. But there's also the elements of like fearing judgment and fearing like, are people going to like this? Are people going to think I'm weird for making this, and so those most beautiful moments though are where none of that matters and where you're just going with the thing as it's being created, and it's guiding you as much as you're creating it, you know?
Yeah. I often say it's a collaboration between me and the painting. I don't necessarily know what it's going to add into it. I can have this complete idea before I started, and that is kind of where I like to start, is to have an idea, but I don't necessarily know if that's going to stay that as that idea. Sometimes
Yeah.
if I'm painting, I mean, I don't know how it works in music, but in painting, like a brushstroke happens, you go, okay, that works. I like that. So how can I build upon that now? And you're in a totally different direction then. Or I guess with music, you may have heard something, or you may have been just, I don't know, jamming and playing around and go, okay, well, that sounds good. I wrote something last week that went, that might go with.
Right.
Therefore, that song's going to become something different now.
Yeah. For me, I'll usually start with, well, it varies a lot, but I'll often start with like a guitar progression, chords. Um, and so for better or worse, what I've done for most of my music career is like I'll write one part, put it into, the software, the computer, whatever, and then write other parts over it and like kind of build out a song that way. So write drums, bass, more guitars, pianos, saxophone, you name it, and then kind of arrange stuff also. But I mean, the details vary, but I think in all cases, it's just you're just playing around and something inside of you like wakes up and you're like, ooh, I like that one. let's keep going in this direction. Like let's dig over here, you know. And it's really hard to say where that comes from. You know, it's just like intuition or like a feeling or something. But there's some, like you said, like the painting is guiding you, or like there's some thing it's in a direction, you know. And I think it's also big magic where she's saying like the art just wants to be created.
Mm.
You know, the ideas are like out there in the ether somewhere and they just want to come to the physical world. And so maybe that's what that voice actually is. I don't know.
Have you listened to the audiobook where the author is reading her book? So it's reading it. Yeah. So I mean, she really brought to home when. Do you remember the bit where she's talking about how she dropped an idea, then some other artists talked about having a very similar idea and go, you know, that's not a genre, people. That shouldn't be a thing. And yet, it's different. Yeah. There's so much similarity.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, people are gonna have to listen to the book, but I've had times where where painting something completely random, like an alien-looking person, kind of stylized with a fish for a hat and stuff, and then there's an African kind of African art version of it. I was like, come on, that's not.
It's the same piece, but in different styles, different people, and that's multiple discovery.
And that's before I even posted it online. So I'm saying they can't have seen it. So this is. So I don't know how that happened.
Well, you know, calculus was invented. I hope I have this right. But calculus was invented by two people simultaneously in different places at the same time, I think. There was Newton, but there was also Leibniz. Okay. And you know, it's often the case that like it's called multiple discovery, where it's like the timing is right. You know, somebody's going to figure it out, and sometimes more than one person figures it out, which is really crazy.
I suppose with science, it is a little bit, you know, there's a formula there, so it's going to be discovered at some point. But I mean, I'm sure there's some quantum theory people going, "Oh, that's the atoms," because there's that whole experiment of having them in two different places and going, well, if that one goes positive, that's going to go negative at exactly the same time, even though they're thousands of miles away, and going, well, right, that's the atoms. So, but it'd be interesting to hear about the theory of it happening in humans but I think it's more likely that with theories, you know, they are real. So therefore, yes, it starts with a hypothesis. Yeah, hypothesis to start with. But it does get proven, so it's going to be discovered at some point. But the fact that they found it at that exact moment, and you know, I don't know if there's some, you know, mathematical thing that says, it's going to happen at some point because just the nature of the universe. But it's still it still sort of messes with your head a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's like a progress sort of thing. It all just builds on what came before it, you know, and that's another kind of humbling thing about art, is to know that what I create is as much the creation of the people who came before me as it is mine, you know. And so my big thing recently has been about just focus on the magic, to use the same word, but like, instead of like scoping out, I'm going to listen to every album ever released to find like, you know, just get a better picture of music. I like kind of reject that notion. And instead, I try to find just as few things as possible that I think really, really just hit that right spot in the brain. And I'll just like study those for hours and days. You know, some songs I've listened to probably 1,000 times, you know, just to because that's where I want to go. You know, like I want to take that line of thought and push it further. Like I don't really care what, you know, Cardi B is doing or whatever, but sorry, Cardi. But like certain songs though, it's like, let's see what we can do with this. You know, let's go for that feeling. The world needs more of that. So that's kind of how I approach it these days.
I often ask all my guests, for those putting themselves out there, like we've been talking about, what advice would you give to keep that momentum going and to I guess, keep confident when putting yourself out into the void?
I was kind of mentioning it before. I got to do it for me. So like what other people think doesn't matter. Art is something that I do for myself and is better that way. And then the other thing is I think I'll do it my whole life. So it's like there's no rush. I got 50 years to make a Facebook post, or there's no rush. So like even if I haven't gotten maybe the response that I want yet, like doesn't matter. I'm going to keep doing it either way. I do have one last thought on this too, which I've also thought about recently, which is I've focused less on like the nameless, faceless masses trying to sell a million records or whatever. I've started to kind of think that's not actually what I want. That's not actually the people who I want to make my music for. I mean, I want to make it for myself, yes, but I also want to focus more on the people who I'm closest with. Like, I would rather have 20 of my close friends and family listen to my music and love it than like a million random strangers that I've never met think it's cool, but my family thinks I suck, or whatever. So it's like, it's not a numbers game. It's really easy to play the numbers game, like to get wrapped into the numbers game, but that doesn't mean it's the right game to play. So maybe some people need to consider like, what is the goal too? Like, I think most artists they just want to make the art, and the numbers are just an indication of like a high score or whatever. But it's hard to control that, think, I think just do what you love and you'll be okay, and one more thing, because I could talk about this forever, I
I
guess.
know we've got time. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I listened back to my first album and I can see why it didn't sell, millions of copies or whatever. I could see why millions of people don't listen to it. And at first I was bummed about that, but then I realized, but my second album was better. And then I thought that would be a huge success. Long story short, it wasn't. Again, probably could have marketed it more, but the music could have also been better. And I listened back and I'm like, this music could be better. That's kind of a bummer. But then the thing I released after that was better. And so in theory, if each thing is better than the last, eventually it's going to be, pretty amazing. And, there's just a real satisfaction in that, in the crafts and just understanding the crafts and working the craft and just putting in the hours. And one last thing. Last one, I swear.
When I asked that last question, I never intend for it to fully end. We often talk for another 25 minutes usually. So.
Oh, okay, for sure. Awesome. Yeah, well, this is the last one though, for this question at least, which is one of my favorite artists in an interview was like, just don't quit. Like that's the bottom line. That's the advice. And I think that's a good idea. Like, even if it's not where you want it to be, like, give it some time. Just don't quit yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was Banksy that said this, but he's been accredited to him anyway. But either he or some other artist said, don't quit, just rest. Rest, don't quit. So,
yeah.
And
totally.
I think that's important to take breaks, to take time out, to gather yourself together and go again. And I just want to touch on what you said earlier, because I think friends and family, because they're so close to us and that, they can see, and they've seen how hard we worked out, they can see all the little mistakes and they go, have you thought about pushing this? They never really see it as the whole product anymore. So therefore, I think it's good to take it on board, but not to try and please them, because my family likes some of my stuff, other stuff again, well, that's a bit weird. So it's
yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. Same.
So I think it's good to try not to please them, realizing that they've been so close to your process that they, like you can see all the little bits that are, could be improved, and because they care about you and want you to do better, they difference mention that first rather than mentioning the stuff that they do like, and it could be quite difficult to navigate sometimes. But so what I was going to ask is, even if friends and family won't pleased with it. I suppose it's still that small crowd still, isn't it? And still trying to get out there without having to worry about that, because funny enough, it's the people closest to us that like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not for them.
Yeah. I mean,
They're not my audience. It's what I have to keep reminding them. So, yeah.
yeah, right. Exactly. And I think even if it's not family, because family will always have very mixed feelings about, their son or their brother or whatever, sister, their creative efforts. Like, there's a lot wrapped up in that. In all likelihood, it has nothing to do with the art. Um, but usually, like some friends or you know somebody out there will appreciate what you're doing. And yeah, I mean, I was in a couple bands in Denver, a city in the US, for a while. And I remember it was the most random thing because some dude just stops me one day and he's like, dude, you're that guy. You play guitar. I saw your band that one time. And I was like, you're one of like the 10 people. Yeah, but it really meant something to me because I was like, oh, wow, I'm not, you know, completely invisible to the world, even if it's like just these small little encounters. And even those, I think, I don't know, there's like almost like a destiny to it, like there's forces at play that we're not aware of. And it's like if you need someone to knock on your door and tell you you're awesome, like sooner or later, maybe they will. The universe will throw you a bone. It'll
Yeah,
give you something.
I think a lot of times it's impossible until it's done. It's good to talk about our ideas, but sometimes it's good to talk about it after the fact once it's happened, I guess. It's difficult to try and get that balance, I think. I mean, certainly my friends and family are starting to see, okay, you've had a few gallery shows, you sold a few things. So they're starting to see,
Oh, yeah.
I'm starting to ask, do you want any help marketing it and stuff? So it gets to a point where they start to see the value in it and see that actually you're putting the effort in, the work in, and things starting to happen. Although, like you with the writing, I'm thinking maybe I need to sort of tone it down just a little bit so I can get back into the flow again and back into the magic of it. And going back to what you just said about those who are sort of cheerleading and things, like when I was doing the Upfest thing last summer, I actually bumped into someone that I recognized on YouTube because I follow his channel, and I've been talking to him in comments. Go, oh, that's you. I recognize you from the channel, and he's like,
Yeah.
he's really quite happy about it. And I was going, yeah, that's the first time it's happened. To go, well, you can now say you're famous now because I've recognized you from the. So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I love stuff like that, honestly. Like for anyone listening or watching, like if you see like a YouTuber you watch or an artist or whatever, whether they're big or small, like I would encourage you to reach out and just like say hello, like, hey, I appreciate that thing you do. Because I don't know, like it always means a lot to me to just get that, to be recognized in that way.
yeah. I think it's definitely a balance with that because I know Mr.
Yeah.
Beast were talking about how when he had 10 million, it was fine. He had like one photo a week. Now he's got 100 million. He has to call in security sometimes when it gets a bit too
Yeah.
much. So do so with respect and gauge the situation. But I think even at that stage, they still appreciate a hello. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're Mr. Beast, if you see Mr. Beast, maybe just leave him alone, or, like a
Or
mega celebrity
see
or whatever.
what he's up to, wait a bit, and then, make
Yeah.
sure. I don't know. He's not. I don't know what he would be doing, but yeah, it's something that
Yeah.
doesn't matter when a crowd
Because
of people.
Yeah, because the other thing, we were talking about emails before, and it's like to connect with someone, you don't just ask them for something, And this is what a lot of people get wrong about emails, especially if it's to a stranger. Like you just show up at someone's house and you're like, hey, can I have, some money or whatever? You like, who's gonna appreciate that? Yeah, like who wants that?
Don't get out a painting up to your face and go, right, it's sold, great. No, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead, it's like, so like maybe don't just ask someone for a photo straight off, at least. Maybe you can ask them after, a bit of conversation. But at least for me, like I would love to know the people who are listening to my music and to be able to connect with them. And like that'll make the music better, honestly.
Yes.
So I can understand the people who are on the other side of it too. So like, yeah, if someone were to even introduce themselves to me or just be like, hey, I like what you do, like I think that's super cool. And then they can take a photo with me. But if they just come up to me and they're like, hey, can I have a photo with you? It's like, yeah, that's kind of weird. But
Yeah, I think it's all.
everyone's a human, you know? Everyone's a human. I'm a human, you're a
Yeah,
human.
exactly.
Even celebrities are humans.
It's down to keeping it to a human level and to having that community and conversation. And
Yeah.
I think it's giving more than you take, and it's difficult getting that
Yeah.
balance right because we all have our desires and wants and fears and worries and things, and I can really come into it where insecurity of thinking, well, I want to be liked by this person. I want to have the photo with them because that gives me sort of a boost if I've met them. But then I have no
Yeah.
story now to tell about our conversation because we didn't have one. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
so I think it's
Right.
getting that
Exactly.
balance right for sure. And I think it's a whole different ball game when you become into like YouTube fame and then into what could even be classed as famous from YouTube. You are. Um, I mean, for me, I just want to be known enough. I don't want to be known to that level. I don't think. I mean, I don't know where I'll end up, but
Hmm.
even getting to 10,000, 100,000 would, and I can't even think beyond that. I think that's kind of
Hmm.
I can't even think of ever having millions and what that would look like, or whether it be engagement or not, or how crazy that would be. Whether my life would not be able to flow in the same way because I still want to make the artwork.
Hmm.
I still want to be a bit of an art hermit now and again. I don't want to. I won't be able to walk out my house and not be stopped too often. Um,
Yeah.
I like meeting people, but at the same time, you want to have that. You don't want to be you want to be able to walk a few feet and not have to. Um, I mean, it would be like when I was in Thailand when I couldn't even walk 100 yards without getting stopped with someone asking about the elephants or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah. I think it's good to have like a number in mind in terms of like subscribers or whatever, because the alternative is I just want more. And then you run the risk of not seeing what you have. You like that would run the risk of like never reaching your goal. You know, like if you say I want 1,000 subscribers or 10,000 subscribers, you know when you've hit that goal. But if you say I just want more, I just want more, I want more, you could be like you could have a million and you'd be like I just want more. You know,
Yeah,
it's like
I suppose the other side with that is you can't change the number, or you can change
yeah,
just the way you engage with people, improve on the way
yeah,
you're packaging your videos and yourself, and how you're um, putting yourself out into the world, which is definitely a work in progress when it comes to being on video. So
totally,
you can't really go. I'm going to get 1,000 people, and the only way I can do that is to get 1,000 people. You need to figure out
yeah,
little changes you can make and come across better, but also staying authentic and embracing the amateur side of things and embracing the fact that I'm it's a place that's far too small for my artwork right now. It's everywhere. Um,
yeah.
just embracing the fact that that's where we're at, and and embrace the next stage, whatever that may be.
Yeah, showing people the process. One of my friends and I, we were talking about that recently, and it's like maybe like I'm already where I want to be, you know? Like maybe it's not about the number or whatever. Maybe it's just the simple act of, being where you are and doing what you want to do. If you
Yeah.
want to paint or,
Well,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, one of the artists that I follow, Ralphie Was Here Studios. He says when he was a kid, he thought it was just simple. You just make artwork and put stuff out, whatever. It's like, well, maybe that is all it is. Is you make artwork, you make music. He's a musician as well, and you put it out there, and then you don't
yeah,
worry about whether it's good or bad. You go make some more, and it's kind of back to that Andy Warhol quote where it's going, don't worry whether it's good or bad. Let them decide, and while they're deciding, make even more art.
yeah,
I mean, I've
yeah,
paraphrased a bit. I'll put it in the description, but yeah, it's important to not worry about whether it's good or bad. You may not like it necessarily yourself, but there's
mhm,
8 billion people on the planet. Someone's going to resonate, and even if they don't, you're going to create something else. So just keep going.
yeah. Yeah, that's why the friends and family thing is so interesting to me because like that's all it is. It's like I don't want to make my music for like a bunch of people who maybe I don't even like. It's like no, like the people who listen to my music are my friends. Like let's just hang out and like think about the same things, talk about the same like, oh, did you get that idea? Like, oh, what about this lyric? What about that part? It's like we're all. I mean, ideally, we could it's something we can connect over.
Mhm.
And so that's what that's what I want to move towards, I think. Like, because what good is it if I have a million fans, but I don't like them? You know,
Or
like,
you have a million fans, but none of them talk on the comments, or no one talks to you, or it's just empty, just the silence of this
yeah,
number just sitting there.
yeah, right, right. Yeah, the engagement thing is a whole other thing. Like, how do you get people to act? But I think the essence is, yeah, just building those connections, like, because for someone to engage, they kind of have to emotionally respond to it. And I think that emotional response does come with like feeling some aspect of you is in them or some aspect of them is in you. It's like that will instantly catch someone's attention.
I mean, I also have to
So
remind myself that while I don't get much engagement online, I get a little bit, and also in person, I meet people, I network. I I met
totally.
I met the organisers of a funk and soul DJ Real final night in the flea market, and then we got chatting, and they go, "We really like Later Five. Would you like to come along?" I was like, "Oh, how much is the stall?" "Oh, no, you can come for free. We just want to have good people." It's like, "Okay, cool." So,
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, the fact that that
Yeah.
happens, I have to go, well, in real life, it didn't happen again very often, but I would say I'm a lot more comfortable in person than I am trying to talk to a camera and then talk to some faceless person in the comments. I much prefer talking to a real person and just having naturally flow as it would do.
Yeah. And I mean, if that's what you're best at too, like maybe you don't even need to be on camera,
Or,
you
or,
know?
or at least not as often as I think, it can be.
Yeah. Or not. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of
Um,
people who just show their hands, but I like showing
yeah.
myself that, I'm here, but I don't want to be just I actually find, I mean, it took a while to get into the podcast because here we are. But I, I found when it's just me on a video, I tend to go, does someone really want to look at my face for that long? And I think
Yeah, me too.
I think for this though, people tend to, if they got premium, they listen to it while they're creating something, or if they haven't, they leave it open and listen, or whatever. I think people listen to it more so than they watch, but I do try and
Cool.
add some visuals in case people are watching, just so they can see um, and whatnot. But sometimes I'm lazy and I just do the edit because trying to find stuff it can or get people to
Yeah.
send to you, it can be difficult sometimes. So
Yeah, that's the struggle. I mean, we were talking about it before, but like the skill set is just different, like we're not video editors.
no, the
We're not,
editing it's been okay,
you
but
know,
the filmmaking, yeah, no.
yeah, we're not filmmakers. Like, so it's really hard for, you know, it's really hard to be in that game. Um, we're just here for the art, man.
Yeah,
But I think that's part of why something like a podcast is a good idea because it's, we can just talk and share ideas and like that's the value in it. We don't need to rely as much on like the video editing and that sort of thing.
no, and I think where the value comes is when people are trying to find that validation of getting, well, this is how I feel about the art, and then having someone else sort of talk about similar things and get right, I resonate with that. It kind of,
Mhm.
I can't think of the right word, but reinstates that kind of, okay, I'm on the right path here. I found other people, my tribe, who think about creativity in the way that I do. So I'm hoping that's what people get from it, or if there's something that those who are listening get that I hadn't even thought of, then please do comment because
Yeah,
I'd love to have some comments. Because I think most people on the podcast listen and then tend to not engage because it's a podcast. But it's fun hearing other people's point of views and other on the other side, or hearing that you've got resonated with it and got a similar view or
totally.
got more to add to where we can continue the conversation. So yeah, it's fun.
Totally. So can I ask you the question that you asked me? Like, what is one piece of advice you'd offer to creative people?
I think for putting yourself out there, I try and really engage with it in terms of because it's quite easy to create stuff because you want to put it online, create stuff because you think that would do well, create stuff because you think it will sell. But I think if you're engaging with it and you're in that flow state, as we mentioned, I think if that's going well and you're forgetting all other senses and you're just in the moment, I think that's kind of where I class things as going well and being good art. Not necessarily how it, the final outcome, but whether I was really engaged with that artwork. So I also try and take a step back from consistency because there's a whole social media culture where we feel as if we've got to put it out, but who's telling us that? We don't have to. There's no one out there, but there's a secret algorithm that's going to say your followers will go down, your numbers are going to go down, and they'll forget who you are, and you won't reach the right people anymore. All this kind of rubbish around the social media culture, and somehow we just put too much fear on ourselves. So yeah, I would say, like we said before, it's like rest and don't quit, take time out and make it for you before the audience. And there's enough people in the world where hopefully some other weirdos would like what you're making. Not that everyone has to be weird to sort of classify, but I certainly, there's some artwork out there that's quite out there, and yet they've still got an audience. They've still got people following it. And this art that even I don't get again. Well, I don't really get why this is doing so well, and yet there's a big following for it. So I think it just takes time, and unfortunately, it takes much more time than any other freelance entrepreneurship. I think most is the average of 5 years. I think art's between 10 and 15, which is long.
Takes some time.
Long haul, So I think it's.
But I think But I think what you learn over that time is really valuable. Because I think what people eventually do respond to is like when the idea is really fully formed, not just in the mind, but in the artwork. That's incredibly difficult to do, and so like it's just this for me at least, it's very much like a technical practice sort of thing. Like I need to get better and better and better. And as I do get better, the ideas get better. The ideas, people can actually hear the ideas better or see the ideas better. And they understand like what I'm thinking. And so this is almost borrowing from mindfulness, but it's like you can always recognize the work of a master. You see what this person has put out, and even if you don't know what it is, you know that there's something about this mind that's, come to fruition, I suppose.
Yeah, there's something else I wanted to ask you, actually. We could probably, it might be a 2-hour podcast for all we know, but so when it comes to the advice of niching down in order to find your audience, how would you respond to that? Because I painted a lot of wolves, I painted a lot of people in water, but I don't want to be painting just the one thing, or if I was a musician, I wouldn't want to just be doing the one genre or the one love songs in all the genres, or whatever it is. I don't want to necessarily have to niche down because my ideas just stop.
I think time will kind of take care of that for me, to be honest, because a year from now I'm going to be interested in different things than I am now. So actually there's a big push to just get stuff out there and not like overthink it, not work on an album for 10 years and not put anything out for 10 years in the meantime. It's like, no, like once this is like at least 90-95% done, like I'm setting a date and it's going out the door either way. And then I'm working on the next thing, which might be a completely different thing. Like my first album was just like rock stuff. There wasn't really a guiding theme to it, but my second album, I was like just really interested in acoustic guitar at that point in time and like telling stories. And so I made it a challenge for myself to make an album of all acoustic guitar singer-songwriter songs and like sing about, stories and stuff. For better or worse, like, was it a better album? Was it a worse album? It's just a very different album. That's all I can tell you. And, then the EP I put out after that, life happens. I was in the Philippines for this and I didn't even have a guitar, but I was like recording all this stuff on my computer. And so I made it a challenge. How much music can I record and release just for my computer without even having a guitar? And so naturally that lent itself to a completely different sound, And so different circumstances, different interests like these, I think, create the variety to the art. So I don't really, maybe it's hurt me. I don't know. Maybe I don't have a niche, and maybe that would help to like have an audience.
Yeah, I keep
But
pushing.
I think,
No. Yeah, I keep
yeah, like,
have a niche should help, but I just can't do it. I do little series, but then I don't do them all in one go. I just go, "Oh, I can go in that series, you know."
yeah, it's tricky, but I think like the people who are gonna, like what I was saying before, like the work of a master, like you just know there's something there. And so what I love is all of these different projects are teaching me different things, different styles, and they build off each other. And so even if someone doesn't like a particular style, at least it'll make them think. My goal with my artwork is to just make people think a little more, think differently, try to hear something that maybe they haven't heard before, even if they don't like it. If I can do that, I think it'll create that emotional response and intrigue.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure.
so I'm not too worried about the niche as much.
Yeah, yeah.
But we'll see.
I'm exactly the
We'll see.
same because if I worry about the niche, I find my ideas just freeze. I just have to just go with whatever the muse or the whatever you want to call it is asking me to do or what interests me that day. Or so, yeah. What any given day, I'm just thinking, what am I in the mood for? What interests
Yeah.
me today? Or
I think it's a balance though too, because creativity, I think, loves constraints actually. Once I had decided to do an all singer songwriter album, I think I had maybe like 5 songs. And so then the challenge was I'm going to write 5 more on, acoustic and stuff. And so that became the challenge.
yeah,
And I started thinking through that lens while I was creating. Same with the computer EP thing. It's like there's something really fun about how do I apply myself in this framework,
hmm.
which I've never applied myself in before. And that lends itself to learning something new. And it's also just really satisfying when you get it right and you've never gotten this particular thing right before because you've never tried it before. And so that can be really cool too. So I think it's a balance of both.
I mean, I will use limited palettes or I will use a theme. Uh,
Yeah,
I think the difference between me and someone who say paints waves or paints wildlife for like years, like 5 years before we move on, I find it's good to have a limited palette for maybe 1 to 3 paintings, and then I need to move on and come back to it
yeah,
later. And I try and get a series that have maybe about 12 in them, but th- that might take me years because I come back to it years later, and I've gone to away for a few months on some other series for a bit because otherwise I just can't do the year in year out. I need to sort of move around and then just do, well, that one I did in, I don't know, 98 can go with this 2023 one because they're kind of the same kind of genre, So it's kind of
yeah,
it when it was done doesn't really is irrelevant. If I still got it and it hasn't sold, then or even if it has sold, it goes into that series with that one because it's another I don't know another wave picture or another dancer that I've created, but not necessarily in the same time frame. So because I get
yeah,
or I have some
yeah,
other focus.
yeah, yeah. I wouldn't let the constraint kill the creativity, like force it so hard that it's like you just hate it. But I think the opposite. I think the trick is to find what you love about that particular palette or that particular sound or that particular texture or whatever. And that just fuels the inspiration.
Yeah, I guess an album like a series is a very good time constraint. When that album's done, you can then have the other album be something completely different if you want to.
Totally.
I think that's where it helps to know that the niche isn't going to be forever.
Yeah.
For me
Yeah,
personally,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. So this has been absolutely wonderful. I mean, me and you, whenever we don't talk all the time, but when we do, we can just talk. So it's always
Yeah.
great. So for those who want to like connect to you or collaborate with you in any way,
Yeah, right now my YouTube is kind of my main focus, but I'm not sure if you can really contact me through there. I guess you could leave a comment.
Yeah,
But
cool. Yeah.
yeah, I am on Instagram. I don't use my music Instagram too much, but my personal one is
Okay.
takes the place, which is at Fletcheroni 17. That's FLETCHERONI 17.
I'll get you to send
And
them all
yeah,
across, and they'll have them flash across the screen. So
oh, cool. There you go.
yeah.
Right here, or over there. Yeah.
Or down,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate being here. Thanks for the lovely conversation, man. This is
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah. Thanks for saying you do this. It's always wonderful to have these conversations with you, and I hope everyone listening at home is, it's been fun to have you. Well, they're not here yet, but to have followed along because, yeah, we've always, talk about so much stuff, and it'd be interesting to see what people think of it. But yeah, I just always look at your life and how, like I was saying before we started, it's that in itself is creativity in the sense that you just upped and moved. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of just, I don't know. It creates itself practically. I don't, I don't know what to tell you. For me, I think I had a lot of opportunities that I decided to take, you know. I think a lot of people have opportunities, but not everyone takes them. So for me, like I was like, I think I could move to Thailand. I'm going to. And here I am, you know? So, um, but yeah, everyone's life is their own creation though. There's not a wrong way to do it. To be yourself is all that you can do, to quote one of my favorite songs. So
Brilliant. Well, thanks a lot, Andrew.
yeah.
And we'll fade to black and on the edit. Nice one.
Sounds good. Cheers, man.
Cheers. All right.
What's up, guys? Andrew here. After we talked, Chris mentioned to me it would be really cool if I played a song for our little podcast. So I thought I'd play this one. I don't get to play it too often these days. I hope you'll enjoy it. The song is called Unravel and Unwind. I'm lost, but I know you'll be everywhere I go. And I'm tired, but I'm fine. You'll be in my dreams tonight. I'm broke, I don't care. I can feel you in the air. I breathe out, I breathe in. You're still my everything. And I miss your love. And I miss your love. All these dreams of you, I cry. You're always on my mind. Something in my heart has died. Still want you by my side. Fading memories in time. Unravel and unwind. Something in my heart has died. Now you're gone and I'm not just an afterthought. I'll cling tight to the thread till it breaks up in my hands. And I need your love. And I need your love. always on my mind. Something in my heart has died. To watch you by my side, fading memories in time, unravel and unwind. Something in my heart has died. It's to watch you all the time. All these dreams of you I'll hide, but you're always on my mind. Something in my heart has died. It's to watch you all the time, fading memories in time.